this is quite overwhelming, right? If you're in my position, like you're all very close to me. I hope I'm not getting too nervous. If you have questions in the meantime, feel free to share it. I think it's a really good forum here to actually have a little bit of an open discussion here around this topic. And let me tell you a little bit about market networks and what I believe are really the secrets to unlocking growth in a sort of market network B2B business, what we are doing. So a little bit kind of what I want to go through. I want to talk a little bit about me and FinCompare, my current company. Then I want to go deep into network effects and market network kind of principles that help us really to unlock growth and how we are doing that at FinCompare and summarize that for you guys. So why me? Yeah. I studied initially corporate finance, or master in management, corporate finance, then I joined Rocket, and then I joined Groupon, which is a marketplace business. You may know it, it's a daily deals website. I worked in London, initially running the travel vertical there, and built up the sales teams for the Nordics in Groupon Travel. Then I worked for operations for the entire Nordic region, and then the last kind of 2 years I was running or started B2B marketing in inbound sales for EMEA. And there I really realized that you can apply not just traditional B2B marketing tactics like events or like classic advertising mostly, but real consumer performance-based marketing and data-driven marketing to B2B lead acquisition. And especially when you talk about B2B, I mostly talk about the SME kind of B2B style. Enterprise is slightly different. So if you're looking for enterprise, you know it's the time to leave, right? So that's different. So the SME space, you have very small businesses, sometimes up to 15 million, 20 million in revenue in Germany, but they behave a little bit like consumers. So you can actually use consumer tactics to get them. And that was sort of the first time we were doing this, and I had a lot of budget to play with, and we were growing actually really, really fast. And helping Groupon there to move from this outbound sales team that was really on the ground, going from door to door, to an inbound lead acquisition channel. So leads were coming to us, making the sales guys much, much more efficient and delivering a much better ROI. I left the company beginning of 2015 and founded a company called Watchmaster. Watchmaster is a vertically integrated marketplace for luxury watches. So we buy luxury watches from consumers. We do refurbishment, authentication in-house here in Berlin, and then we sell those watches on. So every single watch goes through our hands. It's similar to the Auto One model. And it also grew very fast. It had a lot of operational complexity because obviously you had two logistics ways of getting the watches to your office and mailing them and having the authentication, etc. And also because in the beginning we were buying those watches on our own balance sheet, it was very working capital intensive. So if you've run a marketplace or if you actually had to buy inventory at some point, you understand how your inventory relates to your growth. And if you don't have enough cash to actually buy that inventory, you can't grow fast enough. And so I was actually talking to banks and starting to look outside of venture capital to finance this inventory we were buying. Yeah? And there I really realized how broken that market is for SME financing. And not just because we were a startup and difficult in general, but for a lot of businesses also existing 5 years and longer and having like really established mid-sized companies, they found it really hard to find in a very fragmented market with a very manual offline process that seems to be broken to close financing solutions. The house bank, the traditional kind of banking model in Germany where you go to your Sparkasse and your house bank and you get everything from one guy and he's kind of your in-law related and he just goes to the same pub with you and you go drinking. That doesn't really exist anymore in reality, right? So there's lots of businesses actually actively looking for financing solutions and don't find them. And so that was the idea for FinCompare when I validated that. And at the same time, I started angel investing. And one of my angel investments and mentors or companies is called HackerBay. If you don't know HackerBay is a German company that does started off as a market network for software development. They were called Build Me This App initially, and now they moved more into like enterprise consultancy, so they did multiple pivots, still very successful, that company. But back then they went through an accelerator program in Palo Alto called NFX. If you know about the marketplace conference, you maybe know about NFX because that's James Currier was a speaker in the San Francisco version of this last year. And he talks a lot about network effects, and market networks. And that was for me the first time I really learned about this concept. And before that, even though I worked in marketplaces, I never saw that potential actually there and didn't understand the underlying drivers of what really drives network effects, marketplaces, and ultimately what are market networks. And so FinCompare really is solving that problem of helping SMEs to find financing by building a market network. And that is very difficult to explain to a lot of people. So even inside the company, it still takes me time to explain what that really means, because it's not just a transaction that happens. It's not a kind of Amazon checkout style logic where you go and you buy 500K as a loan, but you actually have a really big process that happens around it with an advisor and a bank, and you need to manage that process. And by actually using these dynamics of this process, you generate network effects and growth for your business. And I'll talk to you about that in a bit. As you see, I hacked the presentation together very quickly. The dates are wrong. I'm still presently CEO and founder. I wasn't fired, so I'm still there. The dates are wrong. But anyways, just if you pay attention, you noticed it. Now a little bit of advertising. Let's talk about FinCompare really and what we do, because it will help you how we actually tackling that problem of network effects and growth in B2B. FinCompare is now 2 years old, just as an understanding for you guys. As I said, we're really solving that problem for SMEs who are actively looking for financing solutions. Yeah? So businesses can have the market in front of them that is highly fragmented. There's lots of price intransparency. When they really need money, they don't have access to it. A lot of the banks don't even provide you with clear lists of what documents are required or what is the next step in the process. It's more like a drip feeding of information, and so you kind of get frustrated during that process. Additionally, when you need the money really fast, it's not available. There are fast providers in the market, but if you're researching at that point in time to find those providers, is highly unlikely. In addition, you have more and more financial providers who are more specialized. You have more B2B fintechs going after this market, more and more alternative lenders going after this market, all super niche, all super focused, yeah? But they all have a distribution problem. Their marketing spend is highly inefficient if they are targeting, for example, Google search for a keyword like factoring, because they can only handle so many factoring leads. So they have a conversion on their funnel of, let's say, 2 or 3%. Yeah? And that's pretty shit if you have to pay for all the other leads and have to throw them back into the ocean. So our goal is to really reinvent SME finance at scale and build a connection between all these existing lenders, customers, and advisors in the market. We're doing this by really building a market network platform and owning 3 major acquisition channels for us, helping us to get the right customers. So one is the point of search. By owning the point of search, really applying performance-based marketing tactics to B2B, and really heavily focusing on that, we can be extremely efficient by also having the supply of all the lenders in the market. We have over 250 banks and financial providers on our platform, and that really allows us to have a significantly higher conversion rate than any single focused SME lender with search. Therefore, we can make Google search for us work really, really well, which is still a major search acquisition channel, right? If somebody is searching for factoring comparison, for example, or an SME loan, if they go on Google, their likelihood to purchase is much, much higher than if you target them with display advertising, or you do magazine ads, or you go to events or some stuff, right? They're just much further down the purchase decision, right? That's why Google search works so well in kind of consumer like e-commerce businesses. The same logic applies for B2B too. You just need to find the point where they're really looking for, and you need to identify the keywords and the structure around it. So really applying almost e-commerce, very granular performance-based tactics to that B2B search. Yeah? Don't let agencies handle that for you. Do it yourself and build your BI around it. The other point is the point of sale. So where else do businesses search for financing? When they buy machines, right? When they buy objects. Can be a car, can be a digger, can be like agricultural machines, like heavy, big machines that are used in manufacturing, engineering, for logistics, etc. So we've built our platform out for that user group as well. So these are vendors who are selling used or new goods in a B2B context, and they usually have maybe one leasing company already working with them. Through us, they have access to 25 leasing companies with a direct price comparison, as well well as all the other lenders in a more call for tender process. So this really helps them to do more business, right? This helps them to give their customers more offers. They are inviting their customers who are buying these goods to our market network. They become a node and part of the network, and then they can do follow-on transactions through us directly. The last one is the point of advisory. So when you need money, who do you talk to? You can talk to your house bank, okay, that's one point, but you also may be talking to your insurance broker. Yeah? You may have a sort of business advisor, right, a SME advisor who helps you with kind of restructuring. You may talk to your tax advisor, and these people, we call them multipliers as an overarching group. They work more in an advisory tactic, and they also have been brokering financing over the last years, right? It's not a new concept, but they don't have a platform for that or a system, right? They do this manually with pen and paper, and they know from 20 years of experience which bank to call, and they may have access to 10 banks or 20 banks, but nowhere near what we have. And therefore, we've taken there some kind of aspects of what VFox has done in the insurance space and really provided those brokers who dealing with customers who are looking for financing with a SaaS sort of CRM tool where they can really manage their business. Yeah? And that really helps us to accelerate also our growth again. All of that ends up in FinCompare. Underneath you have all the financing solutions. The entire system has basically a processing engine, a matching engine, and a data platform, so all data is hosted centrally, and that really helps you if you access that data, and more data is provided to again create network effects for your businesses, because follow-on transactions are like really, really easy, right? In a business context, you usually have to provide an annual report, yeah? The annual report of 2 years ago will stay the same for quite a long time. So you can actually don't have to upload it again because you've uploaded it already. And if you closed a financing deal already with us, we know you're bankable. We've got your scoring, so we can close more and more transactions with you. So that's really, really important. All of it is really modular, so you have all of it is connected with APIs, so you can connect our comparison platforms in a lot of like other contexts too, theoretically. So online banking would be one way, or even with your insurance and other things. Yeah? At the core, though, it's really made for people, right? That is really, really important. In my point of view, in B2B transactions, it's very often a very complex product. Yeah? If you compare this to what normal people do, they send faxes very often still. So I'm invested, for example, in a company, they do digitization of building material sales. Yeah? There, the standard process is really to still send fax back and forth. Yeah? You can't imagine, and I mean, this is Germany, right? So it's a crazy way of doing business. And so it's normally a very complex transaction, a lot of face-to-face still, lots of back and forth. This tax advisor in the financing context sends a physical folder sometimes to the bank, yeah? A Wanderordner, yeah? So, totally crazy. And so what we said, look, I can't automate this process. Yeah, this is impossible. Yeah, you can. I mean, obviously, I pitched to VCs. This will be automated at some point. But in reality, for now at least, you don't need to automate it. You will not win by automating it. You will win by providing a platform where all these manual processes can actually happen, and where all of the people have transparency on what has actually been provided. Yeah? So think of it that way. When you have, some of you have companies for sure, when you do a financing round and you have to share legal documents with multiple investors, you need to all write into Word documents and have lots of versioning bullshit happening after a while, versus Google Docs. When you internally work and you work on Google Docs, you never have versioning issues, you never have confusion because you all work in the same document, you can comment, it's very clear and transparent. So we are kind of creating Google Docs for SME financing. So you can comment on documents, you can answer questions back and forth, and so you create real transparency for the business, for the bank, and for the financial advisor and other users who are also connected to them. So those may be employees, tax advisors, or other employees inside a bank, like a risk officer. This is how it looks now for our 3 major user groups. It's for the SME, the real important point, the single point of contact. For the lenders, it's about high quality leads. So you're really solving the distribution problem, being a much more efficient marketing channel if they would do it by themselves. But also they are using you as a secondary lead marketplace. So that's another way of increasing the network effect in your business. All those suppliers in my platform, they are using us to send leads to us again that they can't handle. So I explained to you that most fintechs have a 3% conversion conversion rate on Google traffic. So what are they doing with all the other leads? Don't call them mostly, right? They just let them lying around somewhere. And so we build a way for all these leads to get to us and for them to have a secondary monetization. And we can handle most of those leads as well. So this is really, really helpful for us. And the advisors who obviously want to integrate the market and want to have a SaaS tool kind of to handle their day-to-day work. Funny enough, one story last week, one of our lenders used us to refinance himself. So now a lender of us, a financing provider, has taken up 3 roles in our market network. So they are 1, they are a financing partner of us. 2, they send leads to us, and 3, they themselves got a loan through us. Yeah, so it's kind of complex in that sense for product, but they'll fix it. No. So we're talking about growth here, right? So I mean, we are 2 years old. We have grown very fast, and obviously, you can talk about fuck-ups in that way. This would be another talk, but this didn't come easy, right? So how did growth really come for us? I'll share you the network effect logics of that and how market networks help there. But it's really about focus at the end of the day. We are not very focused when it comes to what products we provide, right? We provide leasing, credit, factoring, whatever, sales financing, all kind of different versions of financing with all these different lenders. So we weren't focused really on that part, but we were heavily focused on kind of the core product we are building and the marketing channels we are pursuing. And we focused really on these 3 acquisition targets that I explained to you, yeah? So first, really the point of search, because that's the fastest way of learning if you have a really product market fit, yeah? If Google search, the purchase decision is very fast, so the customer really wants financing, otherwise they wouldn't Google for these keywords. And if you fuck up with those customers, highly likely nobody else will buy your product, so pivot, yeah? So don't waste your time with other B2B tactics in that sense, but if you see their traction, and this doesn't need to be massive, but if you see early signs of growth, then you can go and tackle these other acquisition channels where you will solve other problems, for example, like adverse selection, right? The counter argument to Google search is that people with bad credit search on Google, but if you go to the point of sale or the point of advisory, you get significantly higher portions of good credit in there too. So enough advertising, enough about us for now in general. So let's talk about building growth and market networks, yeah? So what are real network effects? Yeah, I guess you wouldn't be here if you don't know anything about it, but it's kind of not everybody knows really what that means in reality, yeah? So it really, in my point of view, and there's dozens of definitions out there, go to the NFX blog, read Matthias' stuff, there's lots of stuff out there that's providing really good content around it. But in my point of view, it's really building out a platform that benefits from adding more stuff to it, yeah? So it can be more users, it can be more data, but it's all paying into each other. So you really need to understand drivers and motivations of your business to really find what drives this kind of logic. Yeah, it's not the same for everybody, but what is really driving your business? Who is the hungry man in your business that really wants to use your service? In our point, it's, in my point of view, there's a network, obviously interconnecting people, so the social network aspect of it, and you have the marketplace, so clear transactional goal. There's also the platform way. So we don't provide like a white label platform, but what Solaris, for example, is doing, Solaris Bank, if you know it. I mean, I talk a lot about fintech stuff too, but we can talk about e-commerce too. Solaris Bank is kind of a white label platform, and they obviously also have massive network effects because they provide developers and users to build stuff on top that they didn't think about before. So they actually enable other use cases that they didn't even think about, and so this kind of grows by itself. Yeah? So it's also a very interesting way. We kind of have the ability to become a real platform for developers to build stuff on top, but right now, because of the complexity and because of really solving that user experience, we want to own that entire user experience and not open it up too much for craziness. So market networks, going in there a little bit more, yeah? So for me, a market network is really combining the main elements of a network and a marketplace, yeah? So how we did this really in the beginning was by using an invite feature. So the invite feature is for all user groups. So if you are a business, you get asked to invite your tax advisor, to invite your house bank, to invite your employees, right? And we put this at the highly conversion optimized across the user journey. and really experimented with it, how to word it, like really focused on this also as a feature. We're using it for the vendor. So the vendor is not using a financial comparison at the point of sale and then prints out an offer and gives it to the customer, but he adds the user details of the customer, and the customer directly on his phone opts into FinCompare and becomes a user of our network, over which he then can collaborate with the vendor, our advisor, and the bank. So it's like an N-sided user groups in that sense, like many user groups, who all have one purpose in mind: to find, compare, and close the right financing solutions. So before you build like more features on top, you really need to get this core need solved, and then you can think about, okay, now how do I increase the acceleration, like velocity of this, and how do I increase the stickiness of these users to use my product even more? Along the way of this common goal to close financial solutions, you have multiple other transactions that may happen. So the object at the vendor may have been bought. The customer may pay an advisor for his service to provide him actually corporate finance advisory, so like balance sheet analysis, preparing him for like actually getting the loan. And that really helps us to have little transactions across the way, but also to handle very complex transactions. So you can go really from 10K up to, like, our biggest transaction so far is 14 million over the platform. Yeah, and all of this can be handled, right? So this is quite cool, and we believe that it can even go higher, right? So we see a gap in the market up in terms of revenue of businesses up to 50, 75 million in Germany, where banks are just not doing a great job, and we can really go in there with our platform. The other thing is really building a SaaS workflow tool or software to focus on complex projects and not quick transactions. We, in the beginning, when we were really early and growing, VCs were always criticizing that our sales cycle is so long. Yeah, why do we have such a leaky bucket? Why does it take 3 months? Can it be faster? Da-di-da-di-dum. So it's the wrong assumption, right? In that business we are in, and it may be different for your business, but for example, in the business I'm invested in Pera, who do like building materials, like for real estate projects. Yeah, it's also a very slow transaction, right? If you're buying a massive house and you have to buy concrete for the entire house, this is not something where you go on Amazon and you buy 20 tons of concrete with a one-click checkout. So bullshit, yeah, it will not work like this. Maybe in 20 years, right, but not today. And so you really have to embrace that long, slow sales cycle and make sure that your system can handle this process, which isn't linear, but it's like a circular process that is a ping pong between multiple parties that are involved in this process. Otherwise, you're losing the transaction, right? So you really need to handle the process. If the process now takes 3 days, 3 months, doesn't really matter anymore. It's just a matter of how big is your pipeline at the end of the day then. Identify the hungry man in your system who is really driven to close the financing need. At the end of the day, our end customer is always the SME, right? So that's really important. We always build great focused products for the SME, but the hungry man who delivers the actual kill, if you will, the close, is the advisor at the end of the day, right? Because he's highly incentivized, because that's his revenue stream. If he doesn't close the deal, he doesn't make any money. So it's very simple. Yeah? Financing, in our case, is not bought, it's sold, right? People say from the banking world, right? So you need to really sell it to your customers. And if you don't have salespeople but advisors, they need to be enabled to really do their job well. And then the business will have a great benefit because they have a great customer experience, and the banks have a very ready-made lead they can put into their books. Important end is the collaboration. We talked about this. Yeah. I have one slide. So Carsten Maschmeyer, you may know, at least if you're from Germany. So Carsten Maschmeyer, I was at a talk once from him in the beginning, and then he said successful B2B businesses are built on repeat business. Yeah, so that is really a crucial point that you shouldn't underestimate. It's not all about new customer acquisition all the time. It's really about the customers that you have, enabling them to do more with your platform. Yeah, so really pay attention very early on to your repeat customers. So that means reviews, NPS scores, like follow on, right? People always think about it's a single transaction, then I do the next one. Repeat business is very important. We are growing very fast because of that. Yeah? So repeat customers are heavily engaged in the platform. We have a network effect there because of the connection they have built to our advisors and the external advisors who brought them, but also the data they have provided and the data that has been generated by creating a alone. Yeah? So all of this data adds up for a follow-on transaction to be much, much easier, much more simple. So it's really, really important, and don't be afraid to just digitize a human process and not automating it. It's actually, from a tech standpoint, when I can get my CTO in here too, he will laugh about the technical challenge of it, right? The technical challenge will come from the network effects and the users you will generate, but in the beginning, it's not that difficult. The complexity comes more from defining the business logic, which is also hard in itself. So my key success factors that I would recommend, and this is my personal stuff, so it may be different for other people, is really to find the hungry man in your potential user groups, right? It's really important who is actually driving your transactions. Build him a marketplace first with a SaaS tool on top to handle complex transactions. So nobody will buy a SaaS tool, right? Nobody will buy like a platform that analyzes your balance sheet. Nobody will really care about scoring in Germany. Like all of this stuff is that's mostly bullshit, right? It's a nice story you can put in a pitch deck, but nobody really cares if you try it in marketing. So they care about the transaction. They need money. They want money. You give them money. It's very simple. Yeah. So find that marketplace first, and then build the SaaS tool on top that actually makes it really easy to work on that. And then they will tell their friends and say, hey, I'm not just finding money through those guys, but they actually help me to do a cash flow forecasting that I could never do before. They can visualize my financial situation, and they can forecast that in 3 months I have a liquidity gap, and now I should use factoring. I've never seen this before. This is awesome. Yeah? So this is where you really then unlock value. Third, I really think you then need to iterate using your user data and behavioral data on the platform to accelerate the velocity. How do they use it more often? What does really drive them? Yeah? Why do they want to use you more often? And I think a lot is, for us at least, is down to the collaboration. Yeah? Fourth, integrate very deeply into all sides of your network. Yeah? So don't just see this as a closed-off system, but integrate deeper and deeper. Allow your businesses to connect their bank accounts, to connect their accounting software. API integrate into the banks. Yeah? Allow the advisors to use you as their CRM, as their billing tool. Right? All these features are very easy to build these days. Yeah? But that will really make your tool the day-to-day tool they will go to. And so over time, we aim to become a modular house bank and replace actually the house bank itself. Yeah? Obviously, that's vision. Let's see where we go. But right now, I think network effects and market networks really help us to achieve that goal. So thank you very much. And if you have questions, let me know.